sweet creative friend. I'm so blessed that our paths have crossed today. I wanted to return to this idea of digital minimalism, but we're going to peel back a layer. We're going to go a little bit deeper than simply lessening our use of digital devices. I want us to go to the root of the cause here, because we often talk about on this channel how you have probably often heard me say this phrase that social media is neither good nor bad, it's neutral. And what I mean by that is the thing in and of itself isn't doing anything, it's what we do with it, it's what we give to it, it's what we bring to the table, how we use this tool that causes it to be good or bad, destructive to our lives, or perhaps helpful to our business. Now, here we are on YouTube, which is a social media platform, so this seems like a good thing, right? Us getting together to talk about things regarding truth and living a more healthy, blissful life, a life filled with creativity and fulfillment. That's a good thing, right? So it shows us that not everything about social media is inherently bad. However, in this world being quickly and rapidly, sort of taken over by AI, and we see the disregarding of art in favor of computer-generated images, and people's work being stolen, people losing their jobs, and it causes us to really take a pause and think, where is this train going, and do I want to be on it? Good for you if you're in that boat, if you're thinking that, if you're questioning everything that's flying at us at top speed, because the worst thing we can do is not question. Questioning is important. And what I wanted to discuss today is how we really lean into romanticizing our lives through social media for those of us who use it. Now, I haven't used social media in a long time for personal use. I do share my work occasionally on this platform, obviously quite frequently. I'm not a big user of other platforms, though. I just try to every once in a while share a piece of work to hopefully make someone's day better. But I don't use it on a personal scale. I don't take pictures and constantly post them on any type of personal account. And the reason I don't do that is because back when I was doing that, it was always this thing that I did to feel validated, right? That I would post these like maybe photos of somewhere I was or what I was doing, or I would spend a long time crafting a nice image of like, oh, here I am with, a cup of tea reading this book, and it takes me 20 minutes to just take this one photo to look just right, to share online how romantic and lovely my life is, right? And in the long run, more often than not, I would end up not even really enjoying that moment for myself as much, because I was so busy thinking about what it would look like online. So let's peel back the layer there, like I said, and look at what is underneath that. What's underneath that, I think, is we are doing a thing solely for what someone else will think. It has nothing to do with feeding our soul, feeding our mind, feeding our body, feeding our spirit, none of that. It is solely about what reaction might this evoke from another person. And when we begin to fall into this habit of doing something solely for a reaction that we might get from another person, we begin to lose a little bit of ourselves each time. We begin to do things not because they'll be fulfilling for us, but what reaction might I get? What interaction might I get that will then, let's face it, feed my ego? We all have egos. It's nothing new. It's nothing scary. But in fact, it's important to be aware of our ego and to send loving, caring energy to every part of us, including the ego. How can we be loving to the ego? By not feeding it with toxic things that will only help it grow bigger and bigger and choke out everything else in our lives. We love the ego by keeping it in check. We love ourselves, every part of ourselves, by realizing that when we start to notice that we are doing a thing solely for what someone else might think of it, we are no longer living for ourselves. We have lost our autonomy on a pretty fundamental level. We're losing little pieces of ourselves. We're not living in that moment. When we're taking so long to how can I craft this little piece of my life? How can I prop up certain things and arrange them in such a way that they'll stand still just for this moment, just for this picture, so that someone else will think my life is like this, when in fact it really isn't, because we're not actually present in that moment. We're not actually enjoying that moment. So often and I remember I used to do this years ago now. I used to look at other people's lives on their Instagram feed, all these beautiful images that look like such wonderful, intimate moments of enjoying, a book or playing with your children or your pets or going off on an adventure. But yet behind the scenes, there was hundreds, maybe thousands of photos and editing and touching up that went into making what would eventually feel like an organic image that was enjoyed to the fullest, when in fact it was in a lot of ways manufactured. And I used to do that. And I want to be totally transparent about that. Years ago, I used to really put a lot of thought into, I want, this to look, this beautiful image. And I wasn't even enjoying those things for myself. I remember going places and putting such an emphasis on, I need these pictures of this thing, that I, after the fact, would think, wow, I wish I had enjoyed it more when I was there. Instead of worrying so much about documenting this for someone else to think my life is romantic. Now, I think we've entered a stage, a season where we need to get more radical about connection. And yes, radical, why not? What we've lost isn't so much that, the world isn't being overtaken by robots, but we are losing our connection, and that's what has changed. Social media, technology, there's always been technology. There's always been a rapid change in technology when you look at, historically, when we went from the jump of using horse-drawn carriages to automobiles and telephones instead of telegraphs, and wow, huge change. That was huge change. And we're experiencing more change now, but that's always been the case. So this is nothing new. What's new is the fact that our communication with one another in the most real, raw, tangible way, talking to one another face to face, caring about one another in a genuine way, has changed. Now I can know so much about someone without ever knowing them. Now I can find out how someone is doing without ever asking them. I immediately think of The Sound of Silence. People talking without speaking, people hearing without listening. Prophetic. And that's where we're at. So what we're feeling isn't so much the, technology is bad. See, technology is doing all this. No, we are allowing our sovereignty to slip away. We are allowing our divine connection to one another to slip away. Because when it comes down to it, we are all related. We are all brothers and sisters. We are all divinely connected to one another. And when we begin to allow our sovereignty to slip through our fingers, when we allow our communications to go down, that's when everything begins to diminish. That's when everything starts to go wrong. That's when we begin to lose a part of who we are on a spiritual level. So instead of romanticizing your life for the internet or for someone else, what if we romanticized our lives for us? What if we had that cup of coffee and that time with a good book, or that time with our children, or writing a letter to a friend, and we didn't photograph it and we didn't talk about it with anyone else. We did that for ourselves. What if we put all that time that we would curate to try to, say something about ourselves on the internet, and then we simply enjoyed it? What if we spent time curating a certain type of life, the life we want, the bliss that we would love to manifest in our lives? And what if we simply enjoyed that with the people we loved around us and didn't share it with anyone else? See, this revolutionized the way I lived. And this isn't a fancy concept. It has to do with, I eliminated my phone entirely. I use a flip phone when I'm traveling. Otherwise, I just have a landline. I stopped using social media. I deleted all my personal accounts. I just use my business account to share what I'm working on. I don't like to really call it business, but you know what I'm saying here. It's not like taking pictures of like every little thing I'm doing. I'm sharing conversations with you guys. And this isn't a one-way street. This isn't just me sitting here talking. I like to read your comments and I like to comment back to you guys. I like this to be a discussion. When I stopped sharing so much on social media, when I eliminated that from my life, when I radically made the decision that I'm going to radically change this, my life began to radically change in a really, really, really good way. Because my relationships with my family grew so much deeper. My relationships with nature grew so much deeper. The present moment became so much more 3D and vivid because I was engaging with it fully. And my life suddenly seemed so much more romantic. I didn't need to take a picture of it to prove it to someone else. I could simply lean in and enjoy it for myself. Because when it comes down to it, that's the thing that's important. That you enjoy this beautiful life you've been given. And share it with someone you love, not with the whole world. Our worlds need to get small again. Our worlds need to get small again. We need to forge those really important, beautiful connections and communications with one another. We need to do that again. We need to get back to that. That's really our home base, isn't it? That face-to-face communication, nothing can beat that. And it doesn't have to be just face-to-face. It can also be over a phone. It can also be, on a Skype call. But real communications with people we love. Instead of just sharing on a public page and feeling like we have to prop up certain things in our lives to appear a certain way, I feel like so many of us are over that, like no one's perfect and there's no need to prop up a perfect image of yourself on the internet. And I'm not perfect, no one is, and the whole point is that we get to be here together. So let's communicate, let's connect in ways that are meaningful. Let's live our lives. Let's romanticize our lives and live in that. Don't feel like you have to share it with anyone except yourself. And just lean into that yourself and enjoy it. Enjoy it for everything that it is, for all that you are. And don't feel like you have to share that with anyone else. So, tell me what you think in the comments below. What do you think about all this, technology talk? I know there's a lot of it these days. There's a lot of talk about where technology's going, and sometimes I think there's too much of a focus on the technology itself, not how we're responding to it. What do you think of that? I think it has so much more to do with how we're responding to it, how we're using it. I don't want to blame a piece of technology for the way I'm behaving. And that's what I came to see, was that, hey, just because this is available to me doesn't mean I have to partake. I get to choose my life. Even if it's the most far out crazy thing, I get to choose my life and I get to see where it takes me. So I would love to hear your thoughts below. What are some things you do to really connect deeply with yourself and with those around you? Do you take breaks from technology, or maybe you also don't use a phone? What do you do to cleanse your mind so that you can connect deeper with those around you and the things that you love in your life? I would love to hear from you, my friend. And I am so thankful for your presence here. It means the world to me. You guys are the bright spot of the internet to me, that I get to come here and have this real connection, talk about real connections. I feel a real connection with you guys, and it really means a lot to me when you take the time to comment and share with me. I wish you so much joy in your journey, my friend. I will see you in the next video. Namaste.